Hey, Dr. Pedram Shojai back at the Urban Monk, here today with Arianna Huffington. You might know her name from the Huffington Post or all the media that she does around the world. She's busy doing a lot of stuff, and she might be talking 2 minutes here, 5 minutes here. I got an extended amount of time with her to share with you right here in the show, and there's some very interesting things that happened in her crazy busy life that made her stop, slow down, and really adjust her burn rate. So it's a real kind of like juicy Urban Monk moment, and we got into it here. So enjoy Arianna Huffington. So you've got a number of books you've already written. You ran the Huffington Post, syndicated columnist. One of my favorite things is that you're also an actress. You've done a lot of stuff, and so sleep, right? It's kind of out of left field, but simultaneously it's so near and dear to a busy person's life. And it drove you to really come out to talk about this. Why? How did you get into this?
Well, it started with a painful wake-up call when I actually collapsed from sleep deprivation and exhaustion and hit my head on the way down, broke my cheekbone. And then as I looked around, I saw that I was by no means alone. That burnout is truly the disease of our urban civilization, and that we have come to devalue and scorn something absolutely essential for our bodies, our minds, and our souls, which is sleep, and something which is free and available, and that can transform, our health and our productivity and our connection with something larger than ourselves, has been constantly devalued. And so I started, first of all, I wrote a book called Thrive 2 years ago that explored the larger definition of success and how we needed to change it to include our well-being and our capacity for wisdom. And then I found that the one thing people really wanted to talk about was sleep, because people may not want to meditate or change their definition of success, but everybody has a relationship with sleep. So that's how I decided to delve deeper into the subject and come up with the latest science that is absolutely conclusive about its importance.
So just to be clear, you were obviously just busy, right? And so were you sleeping and having sleepless nights because of just the amount of spin? Or is it just your schedule was so hectic and so, go, that you didn't stop to take enough time for sleep?
I think mostly the second. I was one of the people who thought, I have so much to do. I'm building the Huffington Post. I have 2 teenage daughters. I'm a single mom. I have to take one of them around colleges to pick colleges to apply to. So the one thing that I felt I could sacrifice was sleep.
Yeah.
And that's often the bargain we make. We have this long list of things to do, and the one thing that seems to be in our control is sleep.
Yeah. Well, only in our control if we can control our schedule, it seems, right? Because if you don't make time for sleep, where are you gonna get it? And so you've actually looked at some of this in your book. We talked about kind of pre-industrial sleep and what sleep used to look like and what sleep looks like today. And it's not quite the same. I mean, things have changed a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I think that the big turning point was the first industrial revolution. In ancient times, we used to revere sleep. We used to even go into temples to incubate dreams, to get insights about our health, our capacity to make wise decisions. But during the first industrial revolution, we began to think we could treat human beings like machines. And the goal in dealing with machines is to minimize downtime. And that was kind of the beginning of that relationship becoming less and less important. Then we had Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb and thought, therefore, we could eliminate sleep. And then the digital revolution made things much worse because we're all slightly addicted to our phones.
Yeah, and information and the barrage of information, it's like, you get the fear of missing out. You got all of this stuff that's happening that you can't miss out on. And then that kind of boots up into your mind and it really diminishes the quality of the sleep. So let's get into the actual basis of what sleep is doing quickly, so we can kind of just draw a circle around that, because then we're going to get into some fun stuff like dreams and kind of the juicy stuff that comes out of sleep. But just the physiological basis. You did a bunch of research on this. What's happening in sleep?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you asking this question, because I actually myself structured the book this way. First I wanted to give the reader, including the most stubborn cynic, all the data about the importance of sleep based on the latest science. And we are living in the golden age of sleep science. And among all these amazing new scientific findings, one that I find incredibly fascinating is what happens to our brain. That we used to think that while we sleep is a time of inactivity in the brain. And now we know that it's a time of frenetic activity. And that the brain has two functions. Either it is awake and alert, or it is asleep and cleaning up. So all the toxins that accumulate during the day as we go through life need to be washed away. And that can only happen during sleep. And we have to complete all the cycles. One sleep scientist put it, it's like putting the laundry in the laundry machine. In order to get clean laundry, you have to let it go through all the cycles. If you put your alarm before you've completed the cycles, you're going to end up with dirty and wet laundry. And that's how most of us wake up in the morning. The alarm goes, which if you think of it, is actually a terrible word. It's like alarm. You start your
Panic.
Day. Panic. You start your day in a fight or flight mode with the cortisol hormone, the stress hormone flooding your body before anything has even happened. And the minute you kind of realize that this is just very destructive to our health and our capacity to live life with wisdom and joy, that you have a greater incentive to make changes. That's why, first of all, I want to convince someone of the importance, not just on the surface, I know sleep is important, but with all the information and the latest science.
Yeah, we're going to get into some peak performance in a minute, because I think there's a really good example that you brought up in your book that we're going to talk about in a minute. But so we have the physiological basis, and making a rational case for sleep is, okay, I understand that you're a go-getter, everyone's trying to champion getting more and more in life, and we all want more, and that's kind of our culture, but we actually are better by slowing down. We actually heal, we clear. And we actually, for our listeners, we had a show with Dr. Daniel Amen, I think it might have been on the Health Bridge, where he talked about how we also had meditation wrong. And we thought that meditation was when the brain was silent. And then we look at the minds of meditators, they're firing like crazy. So it's that kind of oxymoron, right? It's that paradoxical space where you think you're resting, it's when you shut down and all the real good quality work is happening. And we need that.
Absolutely. That is very profound, Pedram. And I think it goes to something very deep in modern man and modern woman, which is we think we do everything ourselves. And I have this little saying on my desk that says, life is a dance between making it happen and letting it happen. And sleep is one of the times when we let things happen, and amazing things do happen. Problems are resolved during sleep. That's why we have this colloquial phrase, I'll sleep on it. And often we wake up knowing what to do about something or with some insights. Many inventors and scientists have come up with their inventions during sleep. In fact, Larry Page famously says that he came up with the idea of Google in a dream. Let It Be came to the Beatles in a dream. So it's just kind of amazing to see how much knowledge and wisdom and inspiration is available to us in the sleep state.
Yeah, and it seems like that was the baby that went out with the bathwater. From the industrial age, now going into this, as you say, the golden age of sleep science, We're really starting to understand that that is actually cutting into not just our efficiency, but it's also cutting into our humanity. It's cutting into our ability to get into the depth of who we are and perceive and feel psychologically up to par to be able to handle the next day. So I'd love to unpack the washing cycle here. You said that there's 4 phases in this, and I'd love to kind of see what the spin is and what the wash and the rinse is, because that's something most people don't know about sleep, and it's absolutely relevant to what you're going to feel like tomorrow.
Right. And that's why now we even have special alarms that wake you up during the lighter stage, because there are the deeper REM stages of sleep, and then there are the lighter stages of sleep. And when you wake up, if you have to wake up with an alarm, makes a difference, because if you wake up during the deeper stage of sleep, that's when you're most disoriented. And you know the days when we wake up and we feel we're not entirely in our body.
Oh yeah.
And we're not really aligned with ourselves. So I think the most important thing for all of us to get is that there are huge consequences when we don't actually go through all the cycles every night. And the consequences affect every aspect of our health. There's a connection, obviously, between sleep deprivation and hypertension and diabetes and heart disease and cancer and Alzheimer's. And also that it affects dramatically our performance, both in cognitive and physical terms. Yesterday, I was interviewing Andre Iguodala at Stanford, the Golden State Warriors MVP, and he has become a passionate sleep evangelist, because when he changed his sleep habits and went to 8 hours a night in a cool room, without TVs, without screens, it dramatically impacted his performance. So increasingly now, people have expanded their definition of fitness to also include recovery, and sleep is at the heart of recovery.
I want to unpack some of the stats here because it's really significant. His playing time increased by 12%. This is from your book. His playing time increased by 12%. His three-point shot percentage more than doubled. His points per minute went up by 29%, and his free throw percentage increased by 8.9%. And this is great because his turnovers, which is all the kind of botches and stuff that we make in our lives and our businesses and our, things we shouldn't have said in life, decreased by 37% per game. Fouls dropped by 45%. And I gotta say, watching him has been profound, because you could actually see a shift in his facial structure. You can tell when someone is sleep deprived. You can tell when someone is well rested. And so if you're in business, if you're a mother trying to run, a busy family, and you have decisions to make in life, which is all of us, we look at the stats of this basketball player, which is easy to kind of throw up on a board and look at and say, holy crap, that actually means a lot in all aspects of his game, which equals his life, which equals our lives. That's really significant data, and that's just from sleeping better. This isn't like some growth hormone he took, he's just sleeping.
Exactly. And he talks also about the impact it has on his mind and on his capacity to process the game. And right now, the coach of the Golden State Warriors has this phrase. He says he calms everybody down. And what he means by that is that, when you miss a shot, when you don't do your best, often what happens, both with all of us in life and with an athlete on the court or in the field, is that we keep obsessing over it. And instead of moving on and being in the present, we're still behind over the misses, over the things we didn't get right. And Andre says that when he's fully recharged from a good night's sleep, he can move on and say, yeah, I made a mistake, but I'm here now. And I'm not going to let that mistake make me make another mistake.
And then those mistakes roll into self-loathing. Those mistakes roll into narratives that drive us into, psychology offices across the world, because we just keep kicking the can down the road. If you just persistently not get sleep, this eventually becomes a problem. I mean, for you, you fell over and broke your face. I mean, it was really abrupt. But you start to see the gamut of this in all kinds of symptomology, I'm assuming. And I'm sure you looked a lot at this in terms of where people suffer.
Oh, absolutely. The physical is the more obvious, and you can see it immediately, but the mental health problems are very profound. And the reason why I wanted to prioritize colleges, and the reason we launched a Sleep Revolution college tour that's going to touch 100 colleges, is because I feel that that's the time in college when students feel they can sacrifice sleep. In fact, there is that saying, grades, social life, sleep, pick two, and which is a complete delusion, because if you actually prioritize your sleep, your grades will be better and your social life will be better and you'll have more fun. So we also see that the mental health problems that are on the rise in college, depression, anxiety, even suicides, are very tied to sleep deprivation. Yeah. And that's the one thing that if we can change the culture, that's kind of my hope, Pedram, that we can change the cultural norms around sleep so that we can give each other permission to take care of ourselves. Because right now, sleeping is seen as a kind of luxury that busy people who are out there winning the game of life cannot afford.
Yeah, and there's all these memes that have kind of infiltrated, like you could, rest when you're dead, but that's a recipe to be dead sooner, right? Like it's obviously not good logic, but it's infiltrated in a way where we think more is better, and that is, we talk about this, and I love this concept of kind of conscious capitalism in how certain things are built into like the externalities. So it's like, okay, here's the success of your business, and you have a coal plant, and so the pollution in the air, the pollution in the water, and all the other stuff that you do as an externality, don't worry about that, and that just happens to be suffocating the planet. We'll do the same thing with our lives. It's like I got my career, I got my social life, I got all this, sleep, externality. I'll sleep when I'm dead, and it creeps up and it gets you. And I love the fact that you're doing this with students because they actually have a choice. Like, my audience knows I'm a new dad, right? I don't really have a choice a lot of the nights. Like these guys, they have things, you wake up. And then I started looking at some of the research of how people just kind of get sick and stay sick over the years. It's like, it starts with college with the all-nighters and the benders. Then you have kids, and then you just, you're not feeling well, but the show must go on, and you never catch up on the sleep. And then all of a sudden you're in your 40s and 50s, and you have all these diagnosable illnesses that are, ahead of you now. So sleep, the physiological basis, and I want to kind of get into this a little bit because there's the softer side, which I love and we're going to get into, but then there's the hormones. You got melatonin, you got ghrelin, you got leptin, you got what is happening in the hormonal system that is healing the body that people need to understand. It's like the fountain of youth as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, well, just two specific things. One is that when we're sleep deprived, our immune system is suppressed. So that means that we are much more liable to pick up viruses. The viruses are all around us. Some of us get a cold and some of us don't. The only differentiator is how strong is our immune system. And, you understand that in Chinese medicine, that's everything, right? It's building that immune system so that you can fight whatever is around you. Well, so even if we look at it purely practically, if we want to be on, and we get a call that incapacitates us for 2 to 3 days, wouldn't we have been better off to have gotten enough sleep and not have gotten that call? So even just a simple equation about cost benefits shows that we're doing it wrong. In fact, it's kind of fascinating because even if you look at it purely as a productivity tool, we are now working harder than ever. We've added like a week to our work life. And last year, we lost 11 days of productivity because people are at work but not really present, because they're not as engaged in what they're doing because they're exhausted or they're sick. And healthcare costs, 75% of our healthcare costs and our healthcare problems are because of preventable stress-related diseases. And nothing increases our stress faster than sleep deprivation. the hormone cortisol begins to flood our bodies. So inflammation and cortisol go up, immune system is suppressed. That's like a recipe for cumulative disease.
Yeah. And the tough part about that is once you are sleep deprived and the show must go on, the next day becomes very much saddled with the consumption of stimulants and coffee and usually more sugar just so you can keep going. So it's like being broke and then swiping a high interest credit card to like just keep moving forward, and eventually the bill comes due.
I'm going to use it, but give you full credit. That's great. That's a tweetable moment, as Oprah says. I love that.
Yeah, and it's our deficit spending economy. It's our entire way of thinking, which is having a burn rate that is absolutely untenable. It's like, oh, I'll catch up on sleep this weekend. We'll go to Hawaii and catch up on sleep later. Next quarter. Who's going to make it that long? It doesn't work that way. And I mean, you found out the hard way, but I think most people listening to this feel it in their cells, right? It's like, I would love some more sleep.
And also, just to bring up the softer part of life, it means that you go through life sleepwalking, like a zombie, kind of checking off the boxes, like going through your to-do list instead of being really present and really bringing joy to what we're doing. I mean, I feel it has dramatically transformed the quality of my life. And if there is one thing that makes it for me now no longer a matter of discipline, but just a magnet that draws me to get my 8 hours a night, is the fact that I can't stand myself now when I'm sleep deprived. I can't stand the person I become. Not really fully present, more reactive, more moody, much easier to kind of be affected by things going wrong. All the things that I don't like, I display, and there's nothing I can do about it. So it's now for me not even like a difficult choice to say not watch House of Cards but go to sleep, or miss dinner with friends but go to sleep to wake up in the morning. And people may think, well, that means you're not having fun. No, I'm having so much fun with everything I'm doing in my life. I'm having fun talking with you here now. I'm having fun, being on book tour, which some people think is the most exhausting thing to do. Yes, if you're sleep deprived. Otherwise, it's an incredibly fun thing to do. You interact with new people. You are having conversations. You are learning new ways to package the message, the way you just told me now about the high interest credit card. And it's fun.
Yeah.
And otherwise, life is not fun.
It's funny when you said this about how you said, I'm going to sleep on this. How many times have we, gotten to a fight with a spouse, a boyfriend, girlfriend, and then just gone to bed, got up in the morning, and been like, I'm sorry. I was a jerk. I shouldn't have reacted that way. I was exhausted. And, a low grade of that is kind of the personalities that everyone's walking around with right now. We're all just, our fuse is shorter. And so the lengthening of the fuse is something I think everyone could use. I think ISIS should use. You know what I mean? Everyone's just so pissed off all the time nowadays. And, in our culture, it's because we're marching around like crazy people. So the paradox, because we're doers, right? Our culture is all about doing. And so are we going to do sleep? It seems kind of like a paradoxical thing to do. So how did you transition into allowing for sleep? Because I think a lot of people have a hard time when they decide, okay, it's time to sleep. They kind of bang away, they're in lights, they're in crazy time, and then they go to bed with House of Cards on and then wonder why they're not falling asleep.
Well, first of all, I think it is absolutely critical to recognize that we need a transition to sleep. And you're a parent of two little children, you don't just drop them into bed. You know that there is a transition. You probably give your son a bath and you put him in his PJs and you read him a story or you sing him a lullaby and you lower the lights, and there is a reason for that.
Yeah.
That ritual moves your son from doing to being. And we need an equivalent ritual to move us from doing to being. Now, I think that ritual is not a cookie cutter ritual. We need to design it for ourselves. I have, as you know, an entire section of the book, the second half of the book, which is full of suggestions of tips, tools, and techniques, kind of like a menu from which you can create your own transition salad. Mine is pretty simple. 30 minutes before I'm going to go to bed, I turn off all my devices and gently escort them out of the bedroom. And I lower the lights. And I have a very hot bath with Epsom salts and a flickering candle. And if I'm particularly wired or anxious about something, I prolong the hot bath. I think water has a kind of magical property. And if you don't like baths, you can have a shower, but something that washes away the day. I love what the Bible says, the evil of today is enough. Whatever happened today is done. With all the good things and the not so good things and the challenges and the incompletions, now is the time to move into a being modality and really recharge and wake up and be in a doing modality. If our brain remains in a doing mentality, even if we go to sleep, we're going to wake up in the middle of the night because we have not powered down the brain. So everybody needs to pick their own ritual. I also now have clothes that I only wear to bed, like PJs or a night dress or even a special T-shirt. I used to sleep in my gym clothes, and my brain was getting these mixed messages. Are we going to bed or are we going to the gym? And in bed, I only read physical books. I don't read anything on screens. And I read books that have nothing to do with work. I don't read about media or politics. I read poetry and philosophy and spiritual literature or novels so that I can actually move to another world that's not part of my everyday reality.
I love it. So you have a deceleration ritual. And just to unpack this a little bit for our listeners, the Epsom salts are doing a lot more than meets the eye, right? It's the magnesium which helps us sleep. It helps power the mitochondria. It helps detox the body. It helps transition the body and the mind into what you want it to do, which is detox and rest into the evening. And you've taken the devices out, so your blue light is out, and so you're doing all these things right. And it's become a ritual. Do you travel with Epsom salts? Because you do travel a lot. I love Epsom salt baths, and sometimes I just, I'm out of town and I forget.
Travel with packets of Epsom salts, and I travel also with some magnesium powder that I often mix with some hot water and take before I go to sleep. And I have actually a little kit always with me that has an eye mask, some noise canceling headphones, some lavender tea. And so wherever I am, let's say I'm going to be in a car now going to the next thing on the schedule and I'm feeling sort of suddenly tired, I can close my eyes for 5-10 minutes and recharge. It's really becoming more conscious of where we are at, because I used to be very unconscious. So that if you think of it, most of us take better care of our smartphones than we take care of ourselves. Like we know when our smartphone is operating in the red zone and it's like gets to 13% battery remaining and we get anxious and we look for a recharging shrine lest anything would happen to our precious smartphone. But if you had asked me the day I collapsed, how are you, Arianna? I would have said fine. Because for me, being perpetually tired and running on empty had become the new normal.
Yeah, and you don't even have a frame of reference to access that part of you that knows that you've gone way past that comfort zone and that your physiology is just so strained and stressed trying to find a way to rob Peter to pay Paul and just get through the next event or whatever it is.
Exactly.
There's
Incidentally, just to explain that this is a Starbucks coffee cup, but I'm filling it with water.
I've noticed.
So in case your viewers think that I'm actually having my fifth cup of coffee, I keep hydrating myself, and that's the only glass around here.
Yeah, no, it's great. And coffee's a thing, right? Coffee is a big challenge. I think it's the drug of choice of our culture, obviously. And look, it helps. It helps get energy to get through these like bursts and make it through our days. But it's the same kind of deficit spending. It's just a terrible burn rate. You're borrowing energy from tomorrow to get through today, right? And so it really puts us in a challenged one down position. And so now that you're sleeping better, how has your coffee consumption changed? How's your sugar consumption changed?
Oh, I don't have sugar anymore. I find that when I was sleep deprived, my body, and that's scientifically proven now, craved sugar and carbs.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's kind of ironic because a lot of people who are trying to lose weight or maintain their weight set the alarm early enough to go to the gym. They would actually do themselves a favor if they just sleep in and forgo the gym. They're more likely to lose weight. I mean, I'm all in favor of movement and exercise, but I'm saying if you had to choose, which I hope you don't have to,
Yeah.
there's no reason to choose. You're more likely not to crave all the things that put on weight and can lead to obesity and worse. And coffee, I love my coffee in the morning. I had my cup of coffee this morning. And the question for me is not having it after 2 p.m. and not using it during the afternoon lull to power through. I'm a big believer in naps. If for some reason you have a child that wakes up in the middle of the night, you're jet lagged, and you feel tired and in the middle of the afternoon, have a nap. At the Huffington Post, we have 2 nap rooms that are perpetually full now.
Great.
So that's something which is available to us, and a 20-minute nap can really reset you for the day.
There's something that needs to get kind of cleared out of our psyche, and that's the permission. The permission we give ourselves to take a nap, right? If you're a type A personality and you're go, 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 and someone's looking over your shoulder, napping and being lazy are often bundled up, right? And so it's really hard, I've found, for executives and busy people to justify a nap. And so how much better have these naps made you? I mean, you're a busy person, you're a successful person, right? Does it make you a loser when you're napping? It's the opposite.
Absolutely. I think what you said about unbundling these things is absolutely key in order to have a cultural shift. And when we are now in the middle of this amazing transition when it comes to sleep. It's like going from the dark ages of sleep to the Renaissance. But this is the transition period, so multiple behaviors are coexisting. And the more people who get stuff done, who are successful, who are admired in our culture, talk about their need for sleep and how effective it makes them, the more others will be able to give themselves permission. Like, I love the fact that Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, talks about needing 8 hours sleep. Otherwise, he's not as effective as a CEO. Jeff Bezos talks about needing 8 hours sleep. Mark Andreessen talks about it. So we begin to have more and more successful people coming out of the woodwork, coming out of the closet, if you want, as prioritizing their sleep, and that's having a big impact. Mark Bertolini, the CEO of Aetna, introduced a program now at Aetna for Aetna employees, the third largest health insurance company. They've given them Fitbit trackers, and it's an opt-in. They don't have to do it, but they can track their sleep, and if they get 7 hours or more a night, they get $25 a night. So I think this is not just the money, it's the fact that the CEO of your company wants you to sleep.
Wow.
So it's a very different message than what we're used to.
Wow. It is actually, when you say Renaissance, it's hard to know that you're in a Renaissance when you're in it, right? Because you look back at the 1950s and like the Beaver Cleaver generation, and it's like everyone's lined up like they're in like a schoolyard, sitting at their desks, doing their thing, banging away, waiting for the alarm to ring so they could go home. And we know now, the captains of industry, especially Silicon Valley, but from there, we know that that is not as effective as letting people have their own natural rhythms. Some people are not morning people. Come in at 10, it's fine. And so the data is there, right? And you're in the heart of it, right? You're in San Francisco right now. You're in the heart of some of this Renaissance thinking. And part of my impetus to do my show and get this is to have this information kind of percolate into mainstream America. And really have everyone understand that, like, look, the answer we know. So now it's just a question of how quickly it gets to Main Street USA, and the sooner it does, the sooner we save lives, the sooner we help countless millions of people.
Oh, that's such a good point. And in fact, I was in Harlem 10 days ago, and we took over a church and had a clinic with doctors and people working in the sleep area to answer questions for people who are working 2 and 3 jobs, struggling to put food on the table, and talking about getting the information to Main Street is so critical. They really honestly believed that they were getting 4 hours a night, and the reason they were exhausted is because they were not as smart and efficient as the high flyers on Wall Street who they thought were getting 4 hours and feeling great.
Yeah.
So ending that misinformation and helping them realize that choosing to sleep, say, rather than watching their shows, which they consider their reward, their downtime, and they would often fall asleep with the TV on and not really have a restful sleep and crave sweets and put on weight and get diabetes, and it becomes like a vicious cycle. So getting that information to Main Street is absolutely key.
One of the longest chapters in your book is on dreams, and I love this because dreams are so kind of airy-fairy, if you will, and people don't most people I know in business and industry don't even remember their dreams because they're so damn sleep deprived that they're so challenged. Are you an active dreamer? How do you use your dreams? How do you connect with your higher self, your subconscious? What do you do with your dreams to really inspire your growth and kind of carry you into a better person during the day?
So I am definitely an active dreamer now that I'm no longer sleep deprived. And let me just stress that I, like all of us, I'm a work in progress.
Sure.
There are days when, despite my best intentions, I am sleep deprived. But there are fewer and fewer. I would say like 5% of my life. But when I'm not sleep deprived, I remember my dreams. I have a little dream book by my bed that I travel with a pen, with a flashlight, so that I can write my dreams down without turning on the light, because the less you disrupt your mode and the less light you have, the more likely you are to stay connected and remember your dreams.
And there's some value in the information that doesn't seem logical but tangential. It's kind of like that crossover synthesis of information that can only happen when you've kind of gotten out of gear and popped in the clutch, and then amazing kind of realizations come in. And Dolly, Edison, all these guys, Einstein, a lot of these people obviously valued that dream state and wrote about it, but it seems like kind of a lost redheaded stepchild to our culture. It's like dream shmeem, like I got work to do.
And yet, some of the people we most admire, like Steve Jobs, talked about how it was after times of Zen meditation, of disconnecting from doing, that some of their best ideas that created, some of the biggest cultural disruptions came. So we have the evidence, but it's hard to translate into our lives yet. I think partly because we are still swimming in a culture that uses the language of sleep deprivation and exhaustion to validate what people are doing, like congratulating people for working 24/7. And a lot of that is not kind of recognizing that that's the equivalent of going to work drunk. In fact, we launched this campaign against drowsy driving with Uber because while drunk driving and deaths and accidents are going down because of the awareness campaign about drowsy driving, about drowsy driving crashes were at 1.2 million last year and 8,000 deaths.
Wow.
So we have a PSA and we have a pledge on change.org to not drive while drowsy, not let friends drive while drowsy. Again, to get people to understand you can't power through when you're exhausted.
It's hard, it's, the culture of it would be, this would be sponsored by Starbucks, right? and so how do you actually fix it becomes the question, because driving drowsy, I think most of us are guilty of it at some point in our lives, and it's just life, right? And so the remedy usually is, let me go get a cup of coffee, let me take a 5-hour energy, let me put on another pot of tea, which disrupts the math but gets us through the day. So how do we master sleep? Like what remedies can we really do? And we've mentioned them all throughout the call, but is there any kind of wraparound wisdom that can really help our listeners and our viewers get that there's ways to fix this?
Well, I try to actually structure the ways in the way I structured the book. So I start with the crisis, because first of all, we need to become aware of the crisis and the price we paid. Then went on to science to bring in all the latest scientific data and how conclusive it is. It's like with climate change or tobacco, the science is in, the data are in, sleep is essential to every aspect of our life. Then the history to understand how come we've been dismissing and devaluing it for so long. Then dreams that we can incorporate the mystery beyond the performance aspects of sleep. And once we've really read all that, we are now ready to go to the section about the how to do it. But if we don't first convince ourselves why we should do it, the how is going to be much harder. So we first need to convince ourselves. That's why I beg everybody not to jump to the how-to section without reading the why section, because it's the why section, the truly believing how profoundly important it is, that will facilitate changing our habits. And I believe in micro steps. I don't believe in overnight transformations, but little changes every night. Start with 5 minutes before you're going to turn off the lights, turning off your devices and taking them out of your bedroom. 5 minutes, it's not like an enormous amount of time. But do include that bath or that shower. Make it a 2-minute bath or shower. You can kind of speed everything up until you get to the point where the new you draws you to implement these changes every night because you love your life so much more. You have so much fun and joy into everything you do that it draws you.
There's something that you just did that I think is the future of where media might be headed. And here I am telling a captain of media what the hell my opinion is. But the tabloids are like, give me 3 things I could do tonight to get better sleep and better sex and have a 6-pack. Go, right? And you're like, well, but that's not how that works, because if I don't understand the why, I won't be able to really have positive change be built into my behavior. And so what you've done is you've really created a behavioral model to help understand the why and then get into the evidence so that you've substantiated it. Then it's like, okay, great. Now that you get it and you're on board, here's the stuff you can do, which I think is a hell of a lot more relevant and impactful than like, here's what to do. I know you're not going to do it, but we'll try telling you again next year.
No, you're so right, because I think when we really understand the why, then every part of ourselves becomes invested in applying the how and becoming almost like scientists of ourselves. saying, hey, I know I have like 12 meditations in an index that I suggest as helping you sleep. And you may say, I tried 10 of them and I didn't like them. They don't do it for me, but one of them did it.
That's your thing.
So it's you just have to like experiment and discard what doesn't work for you and accept what does.
Yeah, and like what you mentioned, your deceleration ritual is your bath. But for someone, it could be standing on their head, it could be stretching, it could be reading a comic book.
You're breathing. For Andre Iguodala, it's a deliberate breathing exercise that he does every night. For someone else, it can be a specific meditation. We have a meditation that actually my sister reads. She sounds exactly like me, and you can play it, and it's designed to take you to a deeper place and go to sleep. So it may not work for you. There are others that you can try.
I love it. I love what you've done. I love the book. I love that it's principle based and it's also homegrown, right? Like this started by you being, all the rest of us out there being crazy and busy and doing all these things, and then it just dropped you and it made you have to take a cold, hard look at something that none of us want to look at because it's inconvenient. And guess what? It's made you better, right? It's not like you stopped. It's not like you're, sitting at home like, weaving and not doing anything in the world anymore. You know what I mean? Like you're still out there. You're just better.
Under a mango tree. In fact, it's made me much more effective at what I'm doing. No question about that. And also, my kind of hope is that people will make these little microscopic changes before they have their own wake-up call. Because I was kind of blessed. My wake-up call was bad, but it could have been so much worse. People are collapsing and having heart attacks or dying on their treadmills, continuing to do,
Sure.
while their body is completely exhausted. I mean, it happened most recently with the CEO of United Airlines, who ended up with a heart attack on his treadmill. So there are a lot of casualties around us. I hope that my example can help others make the changes before something happens that can be prevented.
I love it. It's noble, and it is important to understand this, not just the punch list of what to do, but to understand yourself and why this is important for you in life. So Arianna, you're delightful. I'm really honored to be able to share your message with our audience. Please tell us where we can find the book and how to get into this world.
Thank you so much, Pedram. Well, you can find it in any bookstore, on Amazon, on barnesandnoble.com, wherever books are sold. There is also a site, ariannahuffington.com, that gives information, like when your podcast is on, we'll link to it. So all the different assets around the book are there. I want to thank you so much for having me on. I really love this conversation. And I hope you have a good night's sleep tonight.
You and me both. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, so I hope you enjoyed it. Again, AriannaHuffington.com. Great story, great woman, just a powerhouse. And she's really practicing what she preaches. I actually had an offline conversation with her after the recording of the show that you just listened to. And she's very supportive of our next movie. But when I said, hey, we got to film it this year, she said, my calendar's booked. And, taking on things beyond what I could book out on my calendar is what got me into this mess. I was like, hey, I respect that. So she is practicing what she preaches and making the right choices to be able to get to sleep and just be better. Next week, I got Jason Wachob of Mind Body Green. Fascinating story. Between the two of these, it got me really thinking about how I run my health and wellness universe over here, because what we do in our day-to-day is what we carry into our future. So how are you adjusting the way you live so you can have balance today? You're really going to enjoy that one as well. If you like this one, please share it, get it out there. This is Pedram Shojai, the Urban Monk. I'll see you next week.